Welcome to the Maasto Fitness podcast. Today, in episode 21, we are talking about lower back pain. This is a quick hit podcast. We keep them short and to the point, focusing on the things you can do off the bike to race faster and safer. At Maasto Fitness, we work with racers remotely in the real world. Many have a life full of commitments and don't have a lot of time to train off the bike or ride. We provide training off the bike, so days on the bike, whether riding or racing, are faster and safer. And like I said, we're talking all about lower back pain, how to conquer it through strength and mobility training. So, lower back pain is something I feel like a lot of racers deal with. With our double jump and triple jump training program, racers fill out an onboarding form when they come to us, and we get a lot of detailed information about their athletic background, when they have availability to train, what type of equipment they have access to. If they swim, they bike, they run, they row, what type of training they prefer to do or have done in the past, how often they ride, how often they race, and then the types of issues they're dealing with. Are they dealing with a previous injury? Is there a chronic injury? Is there something that's been an annoyance for them? And all that gives me a lot of detailed information to help ensure I'm building the absolute best training program for them. Now, one that comes up pretty often is lower back pain. And so I feel like this is a good opportunity for me to talk about what we can do to help combat lower back pain. It's a lot of it. What we are doing is through strength and mobility training, and we're going to dive into both of those. But also with that strength and mobility training, we're doing more than just helping alleviate or hopefully eliminate lower back pain. We're also trying to help with injury prevention, strengthen the body, make sure it can move through a proper range of motions as well. So we're limiting the chance of injury, and that's injury through crash or just through the normal motions of racing. So an injury where we're just stressing the system too much and our body's not resilient enough or strong enough to be able to combat it through a crash, whatever it may be, we want to help eliminate it. So let's talk more about lower back pain in motocross, in off-road racing. And I feel like one reason that a lot of racers sometimes feel like they have lower back pain is just the physical demands of racing and riding put on the body, the jarring, the movement, all of that. And I do feel like one of them that can lead to lower back pain is if we start to get tired, we sit down a lot, but we're still trying to go fast. And so we're really just beating up our spine by being on the seat too much in rough terrain. So not having that proper strength and endurance foundation is going to be a big one off the back. If we're just spending too much time on the seat when we should be standing up, of course, we're going to experience some type of back pain, and that'll kind of roll into the strength and mobility as well. And I think it's important to mention that with the core, and the strength required to help support our spine also connects the upper body and lower body. And those are the two connection points of our bike. Upper body, hands on the handlebars, good proper form, up in that kind of athletic position, I like to call it, on over the bike. And then lower body, we're squeezing the bike and controlling the bike's movements with our lower body. So we've got the lower body doing work, we got the upper body doing work. We don't want to forget the core because the core connects it all. And this next part, you're probably going to hear me say a couple times, but the core is more than just the muscles in the front. It wraps all the way around our body. So we've got the muscles in the front, the side, the back, and that's all considered our core. And that's all really important to strengthen to ensure we help alleviate lower back pain, can control the bike, all those things that are important. So a couple causes of lower back pain, there can be first, like the mistakes on the bike, really high impact landings, jarring on rough terrain when we're sitting, when we should be standing, can cause lower back pain. Extended periods with an improper riding position. So oftentimes, not having a proper strength, endurance, and mobility foundation will lead to a breakdown in form, and eventually form's gonna fail on us. And then we're going to have an improper riding position, and we're going to be beating ourselves up more. The lower back can really take a beating there. Insufficient core strength and stability. I already kind of mentioned that. That's a big one. Poor posture or riding technique. So we got the two, maybe the fundamentals could be improved with some form and technique work on the bike. But then also, if we're to a point where we can't hold proper form because we're not strong enough, well, of course, our riding technique is not going to be great because we're not able to hold our body in the correct position while trying to maintain oftentimes as fast a rate of speed as we can on this big machine. And then limited flexibility and mobility of the hips and lower back. This is a big one. This is one that I personally have to deal with, or that I should say that I deal with. I have a job where, despite being a health and fitness professional, working with racers remotely, all these things, I spend a lot of time sitting, programming workouts, planning workouts, analyzing workouts, chatting with racers. So I find myself sitting a lot. And so my lower back and hips definitely get locked up. And it's something I need to always make sure I'm keeping an eye on, or pain happens. It's just how it goes. And then the cumulative effect of everything I just mentioned can lead to chronic lower back pain. So chronic, we're talking long term, and that's nothing any of us ever want to deal with if it can be avoided. So making sure we're doing all the right things, good form, good technique, making sure that we're strong, resilient, can move our body through proper range of motions, all are going to limit the chances of having lower back pain while we're riding or racing or afterwards as well. So first, let's go ahead and dive into the importance of strength and mobility training. We want to make sure that the core is strong enough to support the spine for any type of movement we're doing on the bike. We want to make sure the muscles around the spine are able to support it and absorb the shock and impacts of racing. So ideally, we're in the correct position and our whole core from the front to the side of the back can support our spine, so our spine is in the proper position and our hips are in the proper position to ensure that whole system is working correctly. Everything from our head to our toes works as a system when we're on the motorcycle, making sure our head's in the right position, our feet, our elbows, making sure we've got the correct back angle. All of that is really important. So we want to make sure that we're in the best position to absorb everything the way our body's designed to absorb. We've got suspension on our bike that absorbs everything. And then the way we're on a position on a bike with, if you just look at elbows, shoulder, chest, core, hips, knees, ankles, everything's like a shock absorber. All those joints with muscles that are strong, resilient, and can move through the correct range of motion, also going to absorb. So that's really important for us. And then making sure that we have the correct stability. So a strong core is going to be able to help stabilize the bike and keep our spine in that correct position. So any type of racing, you're always deflecting off of something in the terrain, something on the ground. And we want to make sure that the spine can move properly through that so that we don't get ourselves into trouble and end up on the ground or just taking a hard slam from the seat to our lower back if it can be avoided. Now, next, mobility. We want to increase first flexibility of the hips and the lower back. Like I said, what I spend every day doing is not the greatest for ensuring that I have proper spine and hip movement. One thing that I've heard many times in the health and fitness industry is sitting is the new smoking. A lot of people used to smoke, not a lot of people smoke now, but a lot of people sit now either for pastime or their career. It requires a lot of sitting. So for me, I need to make sure I'm doing all the things to unlock those joints. If you have a career where you're on the move or physically moving, I do find that those racers have less mobility issues, but that doesn't mean there still isn't a mobility issue where things are locked up a little bit, especially if you're doing something very repetitive, maybe at your day job. It's important to make sure that we're doing all the right things to take our body through the correct ranges of motion to reduce stiffness and tension. So we want to improve that range of motion of the hips, lower back, and allow for smoother and safer movement. And this will help prevent injuries and ensure we can handle the physical demands of racing. And now, while I'm talking just about lower back and hips, it's the whole system, our whole body. Like I said, just like we're on the bike, everything is connected. So while for lower back pain, I'm talking specifically about making sure the hips have the proper range of motion and lower back. You always want to be working on the whole body because the last thing we want is to get injured from something that we could avoid. And the last thing we want is to not have the seat time we want or not get the ride time we want from something that we could have in theory avoided. Now for strength training, what type of exercises can we do? And I'll kind of break it down into three categories. First, there's core strengthening exercises, then there's lower back strengthening exercises, and then finally full body. So to get a stronger core, it's not just doing sit-ups. Like I said, that system wraps all the way around our body, and there's lots of ways we can do it. It's not as simple as doing sit-ups, planks, and Supermans. While those are all beneficial, there's lots of ways we can strengthen the core, especially as dirt bike racers. We use our whole body, so we want to train our whole body and often do multi-joint movements where we're using multiple systems. So, but to strengthen the core, we'll start out there. We can do planks, side planks, things like dead bugs or bird dogs, which help with the lower back. And then we can do Russian twist or bicycle crunches to help with the obliques, the sides. One thing I do like about planks and side planks is when you're doing that position, it's very similar to racing. When we're racing, we're not like doing a bunch of crunches. This is my example of doing crunches. We're not doing like a bunch of crunches or like side bends. We're really trying to stabilize that core. So I think planks are a really good one to do because I feel they help mimic kind of what we got to do on the bike. Then next, lower back strengthening exercises. We can do deadlifts, back that help with building the back strength and stability. We can do good mornings, which is another kind of somewhat similar movement that helps with the lower back and hamstring engagement. We can do back extensions to target muscles on the back and just help enhance spinal support. So those ones will kind of target those lower back muscles. And then we can do full body exercises, which is another thing that I really like. And if you're a Maasto racer listening to this, you already know this. Deadlift variations. We do squats with lunges. We do kettlebell swings, some dynamic explosive movements, pull-ups, push-ups to help strengthen the upper body and engage the core, which is helping strengthen our spine, and just things that help improve overall balance as well. Really important. And those balance movements incorporate the core, because if you just stand right now, close your eyes, try to lift one leg, you'll feel your core engage as you try to find your center and make sure you stay up. Now on the other end, we've got mobility exercises. So and this is another thing that if you're a Maasto racer, you're like, wow, all these movements are really familiar. So hip flexor stretches to help alleviate tightness and increase range of motion. The pigeon pose is a nice deep hip stretch, and it helps relieve lower back tension for sure. Cat-cow exercise, help with spine flexibility, mobility. Child's pose, one of my favorites, just getting deep down in a child's pose. I think always feels good on stretching the lower back out, kind of tilts those hips nice and forward. And then also child's pose always feels good for me on my shoulders, especially, like I say again, we don't do a lot with our hands over our head in general, or I should say I don't. I'm sitting at a desk a lot with my hands in front of me. I'm on a motorcycle, my hands are below me. I'm on a bicycle, my hands are below me. So child's pose, nice one to get those arms overhead and stretched out. And then things like seated spinal twist help with rotational mobility and flexibility, another good one. And then there's the dynamic movements, which some of these, if you're a Maasto racer, will sound familiar because they're things that we do when we get warmed up for races. And that's leg swings for hip flexibility and dynamic movement, arm circles for shoulder mobility, and then dynamic stretches just in general before we ride or race are always going to help get the body warmed up and feeling more fluid. Before we race, we don't really want to do static movements where you like hold a stretch. We want to do more of a mobility movement that takes us through a range of motions. And that's exactly what we do at Maasto Fitness, because when we stretch, a good saying that I've been taught is we lose power for an hour. So when we stretch, when we just hold a muscle static, stretch it, just sit there and hold it, essentially we're stretching out a rubber band that's cold, and it takes it a while for it to come back. Or if we do a dynamic movement, we're taking it through that range of motion, but not holding it. So we're warming it up and not losing the power. So that's another big one before you race, help kind of get everything ready and in shape, and important for mobility of the hips and the lower back. Now, for integrating this into training, if you're not a Maasto racer and you're listening to this, we're all about progression. So with all the things I've mentioned, those strength movements and mobility movements, we want to start low, make sure we have the foundations, make sure we're doing the movements properly, and then start adding a little bit more of a load or duration to it. So for the strength, start out 2 to 3 times a week with those movements, slowly increase the frequency you're doing them, the amount of reps, and then start to add some weight to them. Don't jump right into it and add weight and try to do a bunch of reps. We want to make sure we've got that proper form foundation first, and we're taking our body through the proper movements, because if we do improper movements and have weight on top of it, it's a really good way to injure ourselves. And once again, it's the last thing we want to do. That's never our goal. So start with the foundation, build a little bit more reps to it and a little more sets, and then start to add some weight to it 2 to 3 times a week, working up on it. And then flexibility, mobility, same deal, 2 to 3 times a week. If you're really tight, definitely don't push your body too far. Start with those stretches kind of on the lighter side. Don't try to dig deep into them. And then as you start to feel flexibility, mobility increase, you can start to add a little bit more duration to them, kind of lean into them a little bit more. But always make sure, once again, there's the good ow and the bad ow. Keep it the good ow. Don't lean in until it hurts. So a good way for you to just incorporate it and start alleviating back issues if you're having them. But in general, as racers, these are all things we should always be working on. No matter how good we feel, we can always improve and make ourselves more resilient to injury and fatigue. And like I said, to kind of sum this one up, something that a lot of racers I work with come to us and mention this as an issue. So if this is something that you're having issues with, you can always reach out to me on Instagram. I can hook you up with a free week of our single jump training program. You can kind of get a feel for how we do things at Maasto Fitness, example of a resource in there and what we can do for you. And hopefully through that, you can see that, we're really about building the foundation and making a strong, resilient racer and someone who, can be in the sport as long as they want to, which is always our goal. We want to make sure we can enjoy the sport as long as we can, no matter where we're at in our journey of racing, no matter what level of racer we are. We all just want to be strong and healthy and be able to do it as frequently as we have the time, because I know a lot of us, we don't have a ton of time. So those days on the bike, we want to always get the absolute best from them. Now, next week, I'm going to talk more about the mental side of training and really why, if you think you can or you think you can't, it's 100% true. And we're going to dive deeper into that. And now, at Maasto Fitness, like I said, we build strength, endurance, and mobility training for riders and racers. And we have tons of hydration and nutrition guides, monthly calls with everyone. So lots of opportunities for you to learn, for you to gain knowledge, no matter what program you're on of ours. We've got a lot of ways to help you and make you better. And if that's something you want to give a try, send me a message on Instagram. And I'll get you a free week of our single jump training program. See you guys next week.